Hello, I'm Rhianna Dhillon and welcome to the Supporting Actor BAFTA Film Sessions. You might have heard some of the supporting actors just then. This virtual series celebrates the nominees from this year's British Academy Film Awards, and you can join the conversation on social using hashtag #BAFTAs. If you've got a question for our nominees tonight, please put them in the Q&A chat below, and also closed captioning is available and you can turn that on using the CC button at the bottom of your screen. Joining us this evening, we have Daniel Kaluuya playing Chairman Fred Hampton from Judas and the Black Messiah. Hopefully he'll pop up in a sec. Hi, Dan. There
Hello.
he is. Hey, looking sharp. How's it going?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Nice to see you. And we've also got Clarke Peters, Otis from Da 5 Bloods. Hello, Clarke.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Looking even sharper with that cravat.
Oh, thank you.
We have Paul Raci, who plays Joe in Sound of Metal. Hi, Paul.
Hello. How are
How
you?
are you? Oh God, it's
I'm
so
great.
brilliant to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we've also got Alan Kim coming to be on camera a bit later on, who plays David in Minari. And because he's only 8, we thought we wouldn't torture him with an hour Q&A, maybe just half an hour. Unfortunately, Barry Keoghan, who plays Dimpner from Calm with Horses, and Leslie Odom Jr., who plays Sam Cooke in One Night in Miami, can't be with us tonight. They both had personal emergencies. But we are going to have a brilliant conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right, Daniel, let's start with you. You are portraying a real person, drawing from true life. So the kind of research must have been insane for this. How did you try and move away from an impersonation and make Chairman Fred your own?
Yeah, it was. It just had to make a decision that it was an interpretation as opposed to impersonation, which is a kind of a scary decision to make, because he was just saying, this is what I think about who he is. You know, this is how I see it. This is how it feels coming through me, and understanding that there, but it's also understanding that this is what's also needed for a narrative. You know, it's like it's in a narrative. It's not Chairman Fred in his actual life, living his life. You know, it's him in a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So that was challenging. But then you just have to, whatever decision you make, you just got to commit to it and just believe in it. You know, and then be uncompromising about it. I do it with conviction, and then just put my head down and just put all the things in place to support me with my decisions.
And Clarke, there are lots of films about the Vietnam War, or the American War, as they refer to it as well in the film. This is different. Why did it stand out for you when you read the script? You protested the Vietnam War when you were younger. How was it then playing a vet so far from your own sensibilities?
I just felt that I've come so far away from the experience that I wanted to reconnect in one way, and also to be part of the conversation that I knew that would be motivating Spike to write this film. Having gone back to the States and seeing the homeless vets and the way that some of these men and women have been kicked to the curb after serving, I wanted to be a part of a conversation that said, wake up. You know? Also for myself personally, when I was protesting against the war, I was only about 17 years old at the time, and I had no idea of what these people were going through. And in preparation for that, we were all introduced to vets. We were also introduced to infantrymen who had stayed behind and stayed in Vietnam. And so all of that was it was almost like a personal journey. It was a personal odyssey I had to go through to do this. And there's how can I say no to like working with Delroy and Chadwick and the rest of my bloods, you know? I mean, just I'd be a fool to say no.
I think that's something you would have regretted. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I was sharing yesterday that when you look at the names of the characters, what you'll see are the names of the temptations. You know, these are the names of the temptations. So there's a lot in this, you know, and looking at it just on the first viewing, I guarantee that you will have missed about 70% of the nuances and information that is coming to you. Yeah.
That's such a great reason to go and rewatch the film. I had no
Check
idea.
it.
I did not know that. Paul, I want to come to you. Sound of Metal is genuinely unlike any film that I've seen before. What about the script jumped out for you? What made you want to be so involved with this film?
Oh, well, I could tell it was sensitively written. Obviously, he had done a lot of homework over the years, 13, 14 years trying to put this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
But what jumped out at me was the portrayal of deaf people as addicts, which, you know, if you look at the film history of deaf people being portrayed on the screen, not authentically, played by hearing people,
Mm-hmm.
for one thing, when there are plenty of deaf actors out there that are highly talented. The thing that deaf people have said to me about it is, thank you for showing us as addicts. And you think, well, that's kind of but you know, they're always the ancillary character. You see them in the elevator, goodbye, or they're comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
These are people, deaf people want to be shown as, we have the same foibles, the same struggles that you have. We just can't hear.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what was refreshing, to have a deaf sober house.
Mm-hmm.
When deaf people go through addiction programs, there are hearing programs, and as an interpreter, I would follow them, shadow them through their experience, you know. But to have a deaf sober house, the other way, you're almost set up for failure. But there is a deaf sober house here in Los Angeles called Awakenings, deaf owned, deaf run, deaf counselors, deaf addicts treating other addicts. So I thought it was so refreshing. So that was one thing about the script, but Darius Marder just did a fantastic job researching the culture that I grew up in.
Well, tell me about that culture. Was that something that you were were you in the role of advisor on set as well as actor for that?
Well, he had his own deaf advisors on the set. He had 3 of them. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois in the 50s. My mother and father were deaf. Mm-hmm. I used to go to the Chicago Club of the Deaf with them. I thought Santa Claus was deaf because the Santa we had there was deaf, you know. I mean, my first language is American Sign Language. Mm-hmm. I learned English secondly. My mother bought me, so English is, you know, was very foreign to me. Mm-hmm. But think about how dark that time was when my parents were advised by their hearing parents, don't you dare have children, you won't be responsible. Well, my mom and dad had 4. And they were blue collar workers from Chicago. They bought me a radio. They had a TV going on. I had record players, some well-meaning aunts and uncles with the 78 RPMs, you know, in those days. I listened to Frank Sinatra, the Spike Jones band, and I was talking at a very early age, but I was signing first. So that's my growing up with deaf culture, with the deaf community, that really taught me the meaning of unconditional love. My father felt very oppressed by the hearing man, because there was no technology. There was no phone captioning for TV, for movies. And interesting enough, Daniel, at the time that Fred Hampton was running around Chicago with the Deaf Panthers, my mother used to call herself a Deaf Panther because she was fighting for her rights at the very same time. There was no wheelchair access for people on sidewalks, all that kind of thing that we've shifted into now, which is a much more accessible world, including the world of the deaf.
Wait, can I ask Paul, sorry, when did you learn English? Sort of like what age was that? Then you learned to speak?
You start signing when you're like, because the first sign you learn is milk. So you don't have to be a couple of months old to know that. English, however, was about, I think, 3 or 4 years old, something like that. And
Wow.
hearing people were, because my father was, and his friends felt just oppressed, as all I can think of. I developed this feeling of, you know, silent hatred for what was happening to my parents and my uncles and aunts that were deaf, you know, this family that was raising me. And I had to get over that because I was untrusting of hearing people. I was in the middle of, there was no sign language interpreting profession. So I was negotiating with the gas company, negotiating for a car, mortgage. I remember the day my mother and father, they put money down on a house and they had to get the money back. Here I was put in that position to go and get this deposit back for my parents.
How
going
old were
through
you?
me. I was about, I don't know, 8 years old.
My God.
8 years old. It's a lot of pressure. Now today, codas, I'm a child of deaf adults, codas we call ourselves. They're not put in that position because we have professional sign language interpreters. You know, I've been doing it myself professionally in the court system in Los Angeles. I'm a legally certified interpreter. I work in court system for 35 years. But imagine as a boy trying to go into a courtroom and there's no interpreters. My dad's got a ticket. Deaf people can drive? Yes, they can drive. I mean, there's so much. Listen, when I was a kid, I would say my parents are deaf. And they'd say, oh, I'm sorry, they're dead. No, they're deaf. Oh, they're deaf.
Oh, the irony.
Oh, and exactly. And then they would think that, and I swear to God, I'm not making this up. 2 or 3 times as a kid, they would go, I see the wheels turning. They go, you mean your parents actually had sex? I'm like, well, what are you thinking?
My goodness.
Do I have to draw the scene out for you or something? I mean, but I'm telling you this, when people are so afraid of something they don't know, deafness, blindness, even a person that uses a wheelchair, that's a scary proposition to go, because I got the feeling that they thought they might catch it. Even people that watch the Sound of Metal, musicians are very afraid to approach the subject of losing your hearing. Yeah.
I want to come on to that in a little bit, because that's a really interesting thing that I think we need to explore. Daniel, I mean, we just mentioned the Panthers. Daniel, you got to meet the real life Deborah Johnson, now known as Mama Akua Njeri, who Dominique Fishback plays in the film. Tell me about that experience and how you and Shaka King used that intimate knowledge that she had of Chairman Fred to write and play him.
Yeah, well, I went to Chicago. I just pulled up to Chicago because my heart wasn't settled if I hadn't reached out to the family. So I just went, and then we couldn't do it on that trip. And then we sat down, me, Dominique, and the producers, and like we had an 8-hour meeting. 8-hour meeting.
That must have been quite intimidating.
Chairman Fred's house. We had an 8-hour meeting, and it was led by Chairman Fred Jr.
Wow.
And Mama Akua was there, and they would ask us, "What's your intentions? You know, why'd you make film? Why'd you make a film? Why are you telling a story? What is it about you why does it speak to you? What do you feel the meaning of art is?" I remember Mama Akua asked me that. Like, what do you feel the meaning of art is? What do you think the purpose of art is? And it was just that kind of, but you know, I feel like, why not? I just think it's like, it's that they have to live that. You know, Chairman Fred's, he's gonna be with me for a very long time because I was part of this moment. But they have to live that day in, day out. Chairman Jr. has his name. I mean, so they're gonna ask you, what's your intentions? So I was just respectful. And for me, it was like they really did help like streamline and the script of The Truth. Of what's happening, Alan? How you doing?
Hey, Alan.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, look at you.
It's lovely to see you, Alan.
The hair's looking fly, bro. What's happening with the hair?
Fly. It's fly.
Yeah, no.
And I dig your tie. I dig your tie, man. Go ahead.
Energy strong. The energy strong, my bro. But yeah, what I was saying. But yeah, I was. Yeah, it was. They promoted truth. They promoted more truth in it. They layered more truth. The script was very different without their involvement, you know.
Oh, really?
And so yeah, it was a lot of changes were made, and a lot of truth was put in, you know, because you got to look at a lot of the information about the Black Panthers is through what lens, who's telling the story, who's writing those history books, you know.
That's right.
And you actually speak to the people, sit down with the people. They're like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. That's not right. So that's why the film feels the way it feels, because we actually came to them and partnered up with them and said, yo, help us map this. Let's help us get to where we need to get to, you know. So yeah, it was so important. And they came, Chairman Fred Jr. was on set majority of the days, or every day. And then Mama
How was that for you though? Just in that moment of you having to portray his father, who he hadn't met, and you know, he was having to just see this performance that you were giving as his dad. That must have been very strange. It was
intense. It was intense. We kind of kept out of each other's way on set. I mean, it was kind of really like but naturally we just did that. But after, when we finished film, we're cool. We're still in touch all the time. But on set, we just knew
Did I
that.
join too early?
Yeah, nah, bro. We're just chilling, man. We're chilling, Alan, man. Chilling. Do you want to vibe out? We could just chill and just vibe out. Yeah. Oh, no,
Alan, I can come to you. Alan,
Sorry.
I want to know. I mean, we're all so impressed with your performance. It's absolutely gorgeous. What was it like having to audition for the film? Do you remember what you had to do for the audition, Alan?
Me? Oh, maybe. Well, I first got the role. Not face recorded, but like recorded on video. Yeah, I recorded on video, then FaceTimed.
Mm-hmm.
After FaceTiming, I actually went to Plan B and did my lines.
Did your mom help you learn your lines?
Yeah, she was the only one with me in the Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where we filmed.
Mm-hmm.
But
What was your mum's reaction when she saw you on screen in the film for the first time once the whole film was finished?
Oh, that's really easy. She cried.
Oh,
I thought she might have.
oh my God.
She cried.
Oh, mama.
She's like, "Oh." Why you crying? It's just a movie. I don't really cry in movies.
Just thinking back to when you were filming and those lovely days on set, was there one scene that you loved doing the most?
Well, honestly, to me, I probably liked the pee scene where I give pee to the grandma. That was really fun.
It's a classic. It's great. It's very funny. I also loved your cowboy boots in the film. Did you get to keep those?
Well, I didn't get to keep the real pair, but I got to keep the, how do I say it, the extra pair. There, that's it.
And did any of the other cast give you any good tips of how to act that you remember still?
Probably don't rush and just be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if this was actually one, but try to blend in, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. We have a question from the audience for you from Isabella, who's asked, what was the best thing in general about filming Minari?
What was the best thing about filming Minari?
Yeah.
Mostly everything.
Everything. Brilliant. I'm going to go to Clarke next, and then we come back to you in a bit. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that was just priceless. How
What
can
a
I follow
hero.
that? Go to somebody else after here, man. You know, come on. That's just too cute.
Clarke, I want to talk to you about Spike Lee, because what a phenomenal guy. He's such an energetic director, but he also knows how to inject gravitas and depth into those scenes. What was it like working with him, and how does he get the best out of you?
I think that for most directors, 90% of their job is in the casting.
Mm.
And I think that he cast this very, very well. We were all men of a certain age and a certain experience of politics in America. We've all come up through that time of the Vietnam War. So I think that what he would allow us to do was to use the script as a skeleton and put the meat on it. He allowed us to free associate. He allowed us to improvise. There were times when your heart got so full. There were things that you just can't put these moments into words and put them onto a script. One of the scenes was when Delroy begins to lose it on the boat. Now that was a really long scene. I hope that at some point in time in the future there is the director's cut of that, because there were scenes that were like that, like the one I'm referencing, where it became very physical. Delroy was losing it, and I had to hold him back, and we were all over the boat. We were falling all over the boat, and we were just going for it, and somewhere in the back of your head, you're hoping someone will say cut. But the other side of it is that you're hoping someone doesn't, because where this moment has taken you is someplace magical, and so for Spike to like say, go ahead, more, keep on going, is how he gets the performance, the truth from us. We all know that first take is just the first ingredient. You're just getting your feet wet. And if you're an actor that keeps delving into the character, there are directors who allow you to see that, who know this, who understand that part of the process. Spike is one of those. Also, working with Spike is that we knew we were going to start on time, and we knew we were going to end on time. So it wasn't a matter of, okay, we have 25 takes on something. You came to set prepared, and because you knew that you had X amount of things on the slate to do, and you knew that he expected you to do it, because at the end of the day, it's your face that's up there. It's your performance that's up there. He's going to give you as much as he can for you to realize your character and the story. But at the same time, he's not going to take 5 takes on you. You've just got to be ready for it and do it. And I like working like that. There's so much time that's wasted on a set, and time is money. Spike isn't like that. Spike's not like that. And for these pieces, Spike is a voice that is in the right place, to speak these truths to power. And he does it very, very, very well. Someone was saying, when did you must have put that Black Lives Matter thing after it came out? I have to tell you that the Black Lives Matter scene in our film was shot before principal shooting. That was the first thing that was shot. We didn't even, so there's a lot in what I've just said concerning Spike, because George was still walking the earth at that point in time. Right. That was 18 months before any of that went down. So what does that tell you about the man's intellect when it comes to dealing with understanding American history, American politics? And if you're on the same slate as him, he'll call you up and say, "Come on, let's hear your voice." And a real blessing to be.
Paul, I want to talk to you about being on your set and the sound design specifically. It is just one of the most fascinating things. And especially in the film, the communication is done through so many different forms. Can you tell me a little bit about how the sound design was taken? I know that, I think Riz was saying that there was a microphone in his mouth, on his chest and all this. So tell me about how all that was taken on set.
Well, I had no idea that Darius was going to spend more time in the sound design after the wrap of this film than he did actually filming.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't know that. So it's actually another character in the movie. But so I was just doing my job as we moved forward, working with the deaf community in that deaf sober house. And just focusing on that, I wasn't thinking about the sound at all. I was shocked when I saw the film. When we saw it in Toronto, my wife has no hearing in her left ear and has about 30% in her right ear. So I'm sitting on her right side here, and we're watching the film, and she says tears are coming out of her eyes. She's like, "Oh my God, that's how it sounds for me. That's what it sounds like for me." Wow. And I've suffered tinnitus ringing in my ears from the flight deck I worked on in Vietnam. I was on an aircraft carrier. I was a hospital corpsman on the flight deck, and that sound, that E that he goes through, I've got that in my right ear. Plus, playing in a heavy metal band for years and years, and not having any ear protection until the 1980s. That's when it was invented. So that's a very real thing. All the guys that I worked with on that flight deck that are my age right now have lost their hearing. Hearing loss is the number one ailment of all veterans of all wars, all the way back to the Civil War, for very obvious reasons. So that all the way down to the level of Joe, who loses it at a much later age and speaks normally without an accent or anything of deafness, and yet doesn't live in deaf culture, lives in the hearing world that he has no foothold in, because, nobody can be bothered. What did he just say? Well, I'll tell you later. Why are they laughing? You wouldn't, I'll tell you later. It's not important. That's a classic line deaf people get. It's too much trouble to include you, to be inclusionary instead of just being excluded from pop culture, as my parents were. So I wasn't aware of the sound design until I saw the movie. I was just living in this deaf community that I've lived in my whole life,
Daniel, there are some scenes in Judas and the Black Messiah where I don't know, maybe I'm probably projecting here, but I imagined you having some sort of out of body experience, because they are just so kind of powerful and on such a huge scale. How did you stay present during those sorts of scenes when you're, Chairman Fred is at his kind of most, like, being like the orator, the incredible orator that he was?
It's like, I started acting doing improvisation, I used to have this saying when I was doing improv. It said, when you're in your head, you're dead. So I feel like being present is being in your body, out of your mind. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it was like, I just wasn't thinking. I was just there. And like things were coming through me. Things were just coming through me, because certain scenes were saying his actual words verbatim. And then the whole setup is 450 people in a location similar. I'm dressed like him. The whole scenario is there for him and for that spirit to come out, Almost like you're doing a ritual, and you just have to be there. You know what I mean? I do all the prep, and then I have to forget all the work I've done. Then I just have to trust and just be there. And that's like just being in your body, and that's kind of what it was. So a lot of the takes, I don't really remember the takes. I'm usually the kind of person, I'm like, oh yeah, that was that take. They used that one, and this one, oh yeah, they used that one. But then I was like, I was just there, and I was just present. You know what I mean? And
Clarke's nodding, and
but it's hard because sometimes, because you're doing those speeches, and you're doing, it's unnatural. The length of time you're doing those speeches on set, you're doing it for 12 hours. Those speech givers aren't doing those speeches. Your voice is going, So it's like you're doing a scene, you're just doing a take just before lunch. You're getting hungry, so you're getting tired because you're just hungry. Because you're just doing speeches for 6 hours, you're just hungry. So those moments that you get, and then it stumbles you. That's because your body, your mind is going, yo, we need something. I want something. I want something in order to be present. And then so that's what it was for me. It was kind of like I really understood just kind of like just letting go and accepting it coming through you. And I don't think there's words to really capture that. It's something to be experienced, not to be articulated.
Was there a scene that you anticipated being the hardest to film once you'd read the script, and then having done the whole film, was it that scene?
Every single scene. Because you can't miss a beat. You can't miss a note. If you're playing the piano, you can't think that's note. I'm playing that note. That's my note. There's a note that's gonna sing, but it only sings because of the couple notes before. Feel me? So it was more like that. It was just kind of like for me, I had to show up every day. I had to be present every day. And even like, so say it's the 50th anniversary day. That was one that took me by surprise, when the 50th anniversary of his assassination. And we was filming the scene when Lakeith O'Neill's character does something unsavory. And that was when my emotions, I've never experienced that on set where my emotions was interrupting the day. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
How I felt about what happened, how I felt. And you had to surf that, you know, you had to really like kind of go navigate that and go, wow, this is a real moment. And then instead of trying to reject it and tuck it away, and you had to use it. You had to use it.
Presumably you had a team around you presumably you had a team around you who were kind of understood what you were going through as well in that moment.
No, I think no one understood because we was all feeling it. We just never, you can never prepare. We just never, the day comes, you're like, oh wow, I'm feeling this. It just it hits you. You know what I mean? And you just have no idea. So everyone was feeling it, and everyone was feeling it at different degrees. I think it was just more pronounced for me and Lakeith because we were navigating that space in a real way, especially for Lakeith, because that's not his politics, you know. And so it really cut him up that day, you know. And but yeah, it's I would just say being present and being in your body. Like being out of your body is when you're out. That's when you're in your mind. But I think being out of your mind is kind of cool sometimes.
Yeah. Alan, I want to come to you next. Hello. Thanks for being so patient.
Yeah.
Hi. I was just thinking about you being on set with Stephen Yeun, who we're also massive fans of, and I've seen you being interviewed with him. You seem like a really close-knit kind of family. When you first met him, how did you two get on? How did you bond? Did you play games with each other? It's a tough one. Can you not remember?
I guess it was way before I even met him on the film in Tulsa. It was actually in LA where I came to audition. So that was the first time I met him. And yeah. We also played this game called Takji. It's a Korean paper game, and to win, you gotta like flip your other player's paper card thingamajig thingy over. So yeah.
So that was how you two got on. That's how you became father and son on set.
Yeah, mostly.
When you think about your favorite actors and actresses, who comes to mind? Who do you want to meet in the future? Clarke saying pick him. Who's your favorite actor?
What?
Who is your favorite actor?
Oh.
It's Clarke, it's not
Who's
you.
your favorite actor? Oh, I see where you got the question. Well, first is Sonic the Hedgehog. And then second is Steven.
Nice. Oh, you're so good. He's obviously given you a lot of money to say that on here. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you in a bit. Clarke, I want to ask you about filming in the jungle. How did that add to the authenticity of this film? Because it seems like it would have been such an intense place to shoot a film at the best of times, let alone a film like this.
Well, there's really only 2 scenes that were shot in the jungle. You know, the other scenes were coming out of the jungle, you know, and into a ravine where we find the treasure we're looking for. But I think what you're asking is more how grueling being in that environment was, and it was grueling, and it did feed us. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, not understanding what these men and women went through when they went to war. most of them have never been in that environment. You know, you cut your way through the jungle on Monday with a machete or with whatever, and by Wednesday, when you look behind you, it's grown over. You know, so you don't know. There wasn't any GPS, you know, to like look at. You know, you had to navigate with old technology, and you're in an environment where the indigenous people, that's their hood, that's where they live. You know, they're looking at different signposts like the tree over there, you know, or a rock over here, you know, that's how they negotiate. So for us coming to that space, first of all, the heat was some days we were shooting in 104 degrees, you know. I don't know how to translate that into the
hot. It's very hot.
Just hot. It's just very hot, you know. And you're drinking water, but you're not perspiring. That's how hot it is. It's just evaporating out of your body. What Spike did, which was very clever, was that to show what it's like to have PTSD, we were old men reliving these memories, but we were in our old bodies. Yeah. And so there we were trying to be 20 years old, running around this ravine, you know, carrying 50 pounds of stuff on your back, whether there was stones, you know, or whether it was just props. You know, there were no little rubber guns. You know, rifles are heavy.
Yeah,
rifles are heavy. Ammunition is heavy, and which, although we're shooting blanks, you know, when those things pop out, they're hot. When the shells come out, they're hot. So the whole environment really did add to our performances, you know, and help us also understand what they had come through, what these men and women had come through to bring us to where we were in our storytelling, you know. And I think that shared understanding is also what bound us together, you know, the 5 actors, what bound us together in this experience. Yeah. Yeah, there was only one night scene in the jungle where there's a gecko. The gecko makes a very funny sound. It goes out like this, you know, and they would be quiet, you know. And I remember on about 3 or 4 takes, we turned over. And those suckers must have known that we had just turned over because they started calling each other. And you have to sit back and wait.
Torturous geckos. I love it.
Yes.
I am going to go to audience questions because there are a few. So we've got a question from Samuel Golding, who's asked, what is the best and worst advice that you've been given from a director? Paul, let's start with you.
Oh, my goodness. Probably the best advice I got, I was doing theater about 35 years ago in Chicago. I was doing Children of a Lesser God, playing the lead of that wonderful play by Mark Medoff. And it's again, a very close subject to my heart, having grown up in the deaf community. And it was a very emotional play. And the best, I'm sure Daniel and Clarke know what I'm talking about here, but when you've got an emotional scene, like I have had so many times, and even in Sound of Metal, is to, if you're going to cry, which is okay if it's organic, but the best thing Mark Millikan ever said to me years ago, he said, Paul, don't cry. You got to fight it, because if you cry, the audience won't cry. If they see you fight, then they're going to cry, but don't release that tension. So it's the best thing a director ever said to me, because I've used it over and over again in so many plays, in David Mamet plays, because I'm really a stage actor. And intimate little 99-seat theaters here in Los Angeles. That was, and I've used that technique, and it's okay. You can cry. It's fine, but you got to fight it, and then the audience will do the crying for you.
Mm.
The worst piece of advice I've ever gotten, somebody telling me to be who I'm not. And I don't even want to name any names, but there are a lot of directors out there that want a certain thing. But, you know, you just have to be yourself, as the brilliant Alan Kim was talking about here.
Yes.
You just be authentic, be yourself, and it'll always be truthful. But if you try to go somewhere, and that's another thing Daniel was talking about, the improv. I worked the improv groups in Chicago too.
Mm.
That was one great tool to put in my little kit, being able to improv and be loose with it and be, you know, out of your mind and still in your body.
Yeah. So it looks like you two agree with that advice as well. You're both nodding. I've got a question for Daniel and for Veronica. How was it working with Shaka King on Judas and the Black Messiah compared to other directors? I guess because this is his second feature film, is that right?
Second feature film, yeah. It was someone that was willing to. He was just great at just pushing me. Like, and I mean, like, you know, when you're like at the edge of the swimming pool and someone just goes, just get in. I mean, it's like,
that's what your parents did to you. That explains a lot.
Just get in, you swim. You know what I'm saying? It's like the year before the shoot, we sat down and we spent 4 days together. And we just talked about script, and he just said, read the speeches. Read the speeches. Just do it. Just do it. And he recorded it. And like, I hadn't done any dialect work. I hadn't thought about it. I just did it. And it was so exposing, because like, you don't like being in that kind of moment. You want to be prepared, and then you just, when you do it, you're just like, oh wow, okay, that I see where it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean? And you go, what's bad? Why would I think it would be bad? What's happening there? And then you kind of take that out, and you kind of go, all right, cool. I'm just trying to tell the truth here. All right, cool. Let's just keep growing. And I think every time I could use him as a resource to kind of guide me, like he gave me the Black Panther reading list. So in order to be a fully fledged Panther, you had to go on 6 weeks of political education. So I read the majority of books on that, you know, and like he was just, and he was so collaborative and so open, and he would just know how to, like, I'm seeing it now more. I don't know what you guys think when you do these Q&As, you can see more of the director's process, because a lot of times you're just in it, and then you see more of it. It's like, oh, he spoke differently to me than he did to Lakeith, than he did to Dominique, than he did to, he had different, and he had a bespoke way with me. And he kind of understood where I was coming from, and kind of spoke my language, and then would just give me a nudge here, give me a nudge there. And then I just trusted him, you know. I just really trusted him, and I loved his intentions and his reasons for telling the story. So, and like, he's just so talented. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
we've seen the film.
It's like, he's so talented, but I saw that on the page, and I was like, wow, like, this is really incredible. This is a really hard thing to pull off. You know what I mean? To like, what Chairman Fred is saying is really dense. It's really dense philosophies and ideas, and to put that within a genre film, you know, that's a real, and to have that many characters and not to feel too to manage that. Like, I feel like I Am Revolutionary scene is like a genius editing and directing scene, because you get all these different storylines while this is happening. That's just not easy to do. And he goes there, and you understand this, you understand that, you understand. You see Jesse's going in, Lakeith changes, and Dominique's going in there, and I'm going in. It's like, there's a lot happening there, man. There's a lot happening. He does it effortlessly. And I'm in awe of what Shaka pulled off with this.
Alan, we've got a question from Isso on YouTube asking, how does it feel to be nominated for a BAFTA for your first job, and also alongside all these other great actors?
What was the question?
How does it feel to be nominated for a BAFTA on your first ever job, especially alongside these guys?
I guess it feels good, yeah. And right now, I'm just in New York.
Oh, nice. Chilling.
No, I'm not chilling here. I came here for, interviews and, one episode of only 2 scenes of a drama series.
Okay. He's already being enigmatic. He's so media trained. I love it. We've got a question for Clarke. Do you prefer playing, this is from Marianne, do you prefer playing real people as there's already a basis for character, or fictional as there's less pressure?
Oh, I like just playing the truth. You know, there are fictitious characters that carry a writer's truth in it, and you want to be true to that. With as Daniel was talking, you know, when you're playing Fred, you know, you want to be true. You know, you want to be there. You don't want to be how you think they were. You know, so I think there's more pressure playing someone who's real, because everyone has their own perception of who that person is, and you will never make everybody happy. You know, so finding the essence of the person and letting that vibrate inside of you and surrendering to that, you know, is how I would approach dealing with a real person. As far as a fictitious character, sometimes there's a lot more fun, because, you know, there are no boundaries. You can go anywhere, you know, and that's fun, and that is fun. But still, you're following the truth of what the author has imposed on that character.
We've got a question for Daniel, which is interesting, actually, jumping off Clarke's answer. When you're using an accent that's not natural to you for the film, do you keep that accent when the cameras aren't rolling? Do you find it easy to slip back into Chairman Fred?
Yeah, I keep it from the car in to the car out. I keep in the accent. I don't slip it, because it's just, my London rhythms are too distinct. It will just get me out. It's like, it just get me out of the flow. Going back out of it and going into it.
Yeah.
I would just hear, I'm like, no, what are you doing? Like, this is rubbish. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so I just would stay, but I did it in rehearsal. I tried to rehearse it, like, let me do this in and out. And I was just like, some rubbish, man. What are you doing? Do your job. So so then I just stay in it. And then, but it does certain days when you're tired, it does get challenging, because you're working doubly hard. They're like speaking to everyone at lunch in an accent. You're working doubly hard when you're speaking, and it's almost like you're learning a new language. You go, how do I say that word? You come across a word, how do you say the word? But it's so much better to come across that word at lunch than it is to come across that word in a take.
Right.
That's how I see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, cool, I'll make a decision here. And then you just feel more confident, even if it's the wrong decision. You just feel more confident, and you just fix it in ADR. That's how you fix
it in post, because their problem.
You just leaned on it. You just leaned on it with conviction. You just go, yo, bow. You know what I mean? And then no one really realizes it. You know what I mean?
We've got a question from Charlotte for Paul, who wants to know, have you got any advice for an actor playing a character who is late deafened?
Well, did I get any advice on it?
Have you got any advice for an actor who's having to play that character?
Well, first of all, here's what I would say about that. Deaf actors should be playing deaf characters, because that's just how it should be. Yeah. Late deafened is so complex and so layered of a population of people. When it comes to my mother, who lost her hearing at the age of 5, and look at a 5-year-old child, and you see how they've already got language acquisition, they're used to music, and then they have that taken away. So the late deafened population is a whole mixed bag of people who have deaf accents to people that who have lost their hearing later on in life. So here's what I would do. If you're a hearing actor and you get offered a role to play a deaf or a deafened character, you better vet and see if they have already auditioned a whole bunch of late deafened actors that are truly late deafened. And of course, in my case, I would never take a role that was a character who was a deaf character, culturally deaf with a capital D. Late deafened is another bag, but I would shy away from those. Now, in my case, because of growing up in the deaf community, my mother was late deafened at the age of 5. I've known all my brothers in Vietnam that are late deafened. I've got a handle on it. If I were a hearing actor, I would shy away from anything like that, because the deaf community is jam-packed with talented deaf men and women who are great actors, and that includes late deafened. So you need to vet and make sure that they've already gone through the audition process, as in Sound of Metal, and make sure that there's being deaf doesn't automatically qualify you. You have to know how to act also.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a balance, and casting is a very difficult thing. And as Clarke said, 90% of the job, I'd say 95% of a director's job is casting. So it's here, at least in my country, it's a political question. And if you're a hearing actor, you know nothing about deafness, I would stay away from it unless you really, really are the man for the job or the woman for the job.
And that's really good advice. We've got a question for Alan from Alison, saying, Alan, you're very talented. What kind of film would you like to do next? You're going to have to unmute before you answer, Alan.
Any movie that doesn't include romance or horror.
It doesn't include romance. Nice. Anything but romance.
Or spooky movies.
Oh yeah, no, we don't want you doing horror just yet. So brilliant. And finally, I just wanted to finish with you, Clarke, because I feel like we haven't really quite talked about Otis properly. I think Otis, your character in Da 5 Bloods, is the character who audiences align themselves with, and you were sort of our guide through some extremely traumatic scenes. What is it about Otis that keeps the film anchored, and how easy was it for you to understand him and his motivations?
Love. That's what anchored him in Vietnam, his love for his brothers. That's what anchored me in the character, my love for the craft and for the story and for the men that I was working with. It's easy for me. I would like to think it's easy for me because I've spent my life loving. There's nothing to be afraid of. You don't see. You might see the camaraderie of men patting each other on the back or fist bumping, right? But you don't see the hug or the support that men need and do often give to each other in times when they really need it. And we come up in a society where to be tactile is a terrible thing. I ain't buying it. So, for me to reach out to Paul, to Delroy, when he's losing it, and for Delroy to feel like this brother's got me. I got him. And with any of the actors that I see on this screen, if it comes to that moment, I'll be there because it's about love. And that's what roots Otis. And I think that that's what vibrates with the audiences as well. His going back to find that daughter that he never knew he had,
I think that's something that all of these characters in all of these films, all of these actors nominated, that's something that resonates, doesn't it? I think
love, that's what it's about. And if we don't get enough of it out here, you can bet something else is going to take its place.
I think that's love is a very, very good place to end this Q&A. Thank you so much, Daniel, Clarke, Paul, Alan. It's been such a pleasure to talk to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was nice.
The next event in the series is Supporting Actress, which is tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. You can sign up to watch on BAFTA.org, and we'll also be streaming to BAFTA social channels. So do go and watch that. Thanks again to all of you for watching. You've been brilliant. Your questions have been great. And one more time, thank you all.
Thank
See
you,
you later,
Rhianna.
Daniel.
Thank you.
Take care, Paul.
Daniel, I love you.
Nice to meet
Clarke, good to
Alan.
see you, man.
Rhianna.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye, Alan.
Take care. Yeah. Peace.